Hey, good afternoon. This is Ralph Mendez, and we're going to work on chapter 16 and talk about process costing as opposed to job costing. And there's two methods we actually use. We use the weighted average and we use the FIFO. So for many of you, this will be the first time, but let's talk about who uses this. First off, this this woman, Susie Batley, was running a new business. She started a Sukar ice cream company, and there's the website. But Susie knew ice cream. Having grown up in a family, ate it nearly every night. We Cuban people love ice cream, explained Susie from her shop in Little Havana section. She took classes to learn ice cream process, mastered the legal and permitting process to open her store. They used tropical fruits from throughout Central and South America, ruby red guava, mamey, papaya, plantains. So my grandmother traveled extensively and always made ice cream with the new exotic fruits she found. We have Cuban inspired flavors you won't see anywhere else. But see, it's a process because you make a large volume. I'll buy 1,000 pounds of mamey at a time, and then these perishable raw materials are all used in a continuous production process. So it's not like a job cost. And then you got 14 employees and overhead. So how do you figure out the cost of that? So she says, we work hard and love what we do. Now, so let's just see what other companies use this. The difference is now between the two methods, FIFO is more accurate and includes the beginning inventory at the beginning of the month and then what you process during the month and what you have at the end. But the weighted average makes no distinction between work done in the prior current periods. It blends together. And what companies use process costing. Now, I'm sorry, I don't think I can make this larger, but here it is. Alcoa for aluminum, Coors for beverages, Owens Corning for building materials, Apple Computer for computers, Emerson Electric, Kellogg Company, so Caterpillar for machinery, Minnesota Mining, Exxon for oil and gas, Boise Cascade, Eastman Kodak, Tupperware, Coca-Cola. So a lot of people use process costing. And the difference is you have more that, so processes for mass produced homogeneous products that are similar. Job costing may be used for like, let's see, a manufacturer refrigerators, process. A manufacturer specialty wakeboards, process. Luxury yachts, job costing. Housing, job costing. Landscaping, job costing. Custom home builder. So book publishing would be a job cost. So, and then the difference though from accounting viewpoint also is you have one work in process on a job cost, where oil refineries, paint manufacturers, beverage manufacturers all use process. So you can see that it's used by a lot of companies that y'all may work for. So it won't hurt y'all. A print shop, job cost. Cater, a job cost. Okay. I hope y'all are starting to get the idea of the distinction. But on process, you have multiple work in process accounts. Multiple work in process. So you have these raw materials and it'll go to machining and an assembly. Think of a bakery. Let's just say HEB bakery, and I don't know what costing method they use, but they mix the ingredients, sugar, water, flour, and salt. Then they got to go to bake it, and then it's got to go to packaging. So you'll have different work in process accounts. Whereas a job cost on a house and everything, they just may have one work in process. So, and for every work in process, you have another overhead, factory overhead account. So you have if you have two departments, you'll have two work in process, two factory overhead accounts. Okay, so let's try it. So let's see here, the beginning flow. How do we figure out the very first one, the beginning flow? So you got the beginning work in process, ones you didn't finish last month. And then let's just say this is May the 5th. So it's what you had in April 30th that you got to finish in the month of May. You didn't finish. And think about beer. Let's just say at the end of the month, you have all these vats of beer. Well, they don't all finish nice and easy at the end of a month. Some of them go into next month. All right. All right. So now, so you got your beginning inventory. And then how many did you start and complete? How many did you start? So in our case, we have 168,000 units beginning. I'm sorry. Beginning. Yep, that's right. And then we started, but we go, this one is started and completed. How many did we start and complete? We have one for that. So let's say we started. So what we had plus what we started should add up the total units we got to account for. Now let's see if that matches the goods completed plus the ending inventory. So let's try this. Goods completed in the ending, 523, they matched. So if you think about those two relationships, what we had beginning plus what we start. So if we have one and we start two, we got to make sure we account for three. And if we finish two, that means there'll be one left. So these two things are equivalents. And I have an image of that over here. Formula, units in beginning plus units started equals what you completed plus units in ending inventory. So 0 you had at the beginning plus you start on 3,000 equals you've had 2,500 plus 500 left. So that's the relationship on this Google Doc problem I created for y'all. All right, so that's number one. Let's check our work here. Let's go on to number two. Now again, this weighted average method does not, let's make sure we find that again. Weighted average makes no distinction between work done in prior or current periods and blends together units and costs from prior or current periods. So it kind of ignores this beginning inventory, as I'll show you. And let me just see if I can find an image. I had an image of a bunch of bottles, if I can find it here. We have to introduce this concept. Let's see if I can find it. I had an image. Shows the work in process. Of equivalent units. Equivalency, all right. Process cost examples. I'm trying to find it. If I have two bottles, 50% full, that's the equivalent of one full one. Two bottles, 50% full is the equivalent of one full one. Now, if I have 8 bottles, 50% done, that's the equivalent of? It's the equivalent of, there it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I've started 8 batches of beer, just a picture of those as some giant vats of beer, and they're all half done at the end of April, well, that's the equivalent of having started and completed 4 of them. But you don't always start and finish in a month. Let's take another example. Let's say these are 8 houses that you started in January, February, or March, and they're all half done. Well, that's the equivalent work of 4 houses started and completed. So that's what equivalent units are. All right, so any more? Did I have another image? I thought I had one more image of the containers. So I hope that helps you get equivalent units. So now we have to calculate the equivalent work they've done. All right, so let's see if we can figure that out. So weighted average, how many did we complete and transfer out, plus our ending inventory. We had completed 385,000, and our ending work in process is 138,000. Now, how far did you get work done with them compared to conversion? Now, if conversion is a new concept, what does it take to convert a piece of wood into a rocking chair? Labor and overhead. So raw materials take labor and overhead to convert. In many times overhead, people think of capital. If you talk about, you take requirement of capital, machinery, places, a building, whatever. So now, if they're transferred and transferred out, you did 100% of the work on them. Anything completed has been 100% done. Now, the ending work in process with regards to conversion, which is labor and overhead, is 30% done. So 385, those are the equivalent. But this doing 138,000 and you only got 30% of the way done, that's the equivalent work of 41.4, and we add that up. So during this month, we did the equivalent work of, even though it's 500,000 units, it's the equivalent work of 426.4. All right. So this is a new concept to you, but that's what equivalent units are. All right. Going on number 3. Now it wants you to do, instead of equivalent units, it wants you to do equivalent units, but using FIFO. Now, FIFO is more accurate, but more computations. So you have to take in beginning, what did you have at the beginning of the month? What did you have at the end of the month? And how many did you start and complete? Now, let's think about this. If you completed 385,000, chances are the ones, I'm sorry, it started 355, but chances are the ones you finished were the ones that were already in work in process. So 355 minus your ending inventory of 138, you probably started and completed 217,000. Now let's just see though, we have to account. Let's go back and make sure we got to account for the same units. It's got to add up, because first off, I'm going to put 217 here. 355 minus our ending probably means we probably finished 217, 168, and then ending work in process is 138, but 523. But let's add up. If you started off with 168,000 in beginning inventory, and you started working on 355, that's got to add up to 523. So there's the difference though. You notice we didn't put with weighted average, we just said units completed and transferred out and ending work in process. But over here we have how much did we start the month with? How many did we start and finish? So these were started last month. So this is not the same number. This is how many you started in the month and completed in the month. So the 523, and that matches. What's the conversion amount? Now, this is another tricky thing for y'all. Let's see if I can show you an image of this. You see, you started these last month. So this was started in March, let's say, and then you have to finish them in April. So if they were 80% done in March, what percentage do you have to work on them in April? 20. Okay, so if they're 40% done last month, you got to do 60% this month. I hope that makes sense to you. So the percentage, what you did last month, you have to subtract. All right, so let's just see if we can relate this now to our problem. They were 80% done last month. Your beginning inventory was already 80% done. So how much work do you have to do on them this month to finish them? 100% minus 80% done, you need 20% more. If you started and completed them, they're 100%. And how much done were the ones in the end? They were 30% done. But next month, they'll have to be 70% done to finish them. So that's another kind of new concept for y'all. So do your math now. So 20%, let's see, that's 32, 33,600,217, and 138 times 0.3, 41.4. Okay, let's check our work. So even though it's 500,000, the equivalent work you did is 292. These are 100% done, 20% finishing the beginning. You've got done on the end of ones at the end of the month. You got them 30% done. See how we did? All right. Okay. So first one was equivalent units, weighted average method, and this one is FIFO. And you don't get the same answer. All right, so let's go on. Now, this is a big problem here. but it's all right. We're going to break it in pieces. So it's going to do both methods, and it's going to use the same information for like 7 parts. So let's try it and get started. Calculate the assembly department's equivalent units for materials using the weighted average. So what is weighted average? Does weighted average take into account the beginning? No, it takes into account what you started, completed, and transferred out in your ending inventory. Okay. Now, don't forget here, we have materials and conversion. So let's go to units completed and our ending. And the difference is materials are like raw materials, lumber and things, beer, that's the water and the hops and barley, automobiles, the steel. And so we have to consider both now. So how many units were completed and transferred out? Well, it tells us transferred out, let's see, is 10,000. All right, in 3, in beginning, we don't pay attention to that. So 10 and 5. So we got completed and transferred out in 5. And materials 10. So this is what we have to account for. Now, there are different levels done. So let's go look. Materials, the assembly department started 12th in November. The following activities refers to the assembly department's November production activities. Percent of direct materials. So they were already 60% demo. We don't do those. So this is completed and transferred out or done 100%. Now, with ending work, they're 85% done of materials and 35 conversion. They've got done 85% of the materials have been all added. And was it 30%? Let's go check. 35. 35. All right, let's do the math. So these are 100%, 10,000 and 5,000 times 0.85. So that we got 4,250. So 15,000, but we did the equivalent units of 14,250 for conversion. And the, let's see, 3 times 15, 16, 17, 1750. All right, so let's check our work. This is materials. This is conversion, which is what? What does conversion cost? What does it take to take lumber and turn it into a house? Labor and overhead. Okay, so there's materials and there's our conversion. Now, just in case I need these numbers again, I'm going to write them down. So materials are 14,250 and conversion was 11,750. All right, so let's try the next one. Number 5, calculate the assembly department's cost per equivalent units. The cost per equivalent units. Cost per equivalent units. So now we got to find the cost divided by the equivalent units. Well, we just figured out the equivalent units over here. We just finished doing that. Here are our equivalent units right down here. Equivalent units for conversion, equivalent units. So now let's go back. So now we know our equivalent units. 14,250 for materials and conversion is 11,750 because we calculated them in the previous problem. But what are our costs? So materials right down here. So here's the cost. We spent this much money this month. This much money. So let me think a minute. Do you count? So I'm going to take 19,920 plus I'm going to add this 1455, the money that had tied up. In here for conversion, I'm going to take the 20,045 and add that 1105 that they had tied up in the beginning of the beginning inventory. All right, so here now, so now my costs are $1.50 for each unit for materials and $1.80. So let's make sure everybody sees that. Your cost per equivalent unit, and let's just say you're making those little ice cream or something. So our materials are costing $1.50, labor and overheads $1.80 for each one. So the total cost of our ice cream would be $3.30. That's the way you would use this. All right, now let's just check our work, see if I made any mistakes here, what I was thinking. All right, now this was using weighted average. Now let's see what the next one is. Oh, so still using weighted average, but they want us to assign the cost. So cost of units transferred out. So now, how many units were transferred out? Well, let me think. I mean, I got the equivalent units, but I don't remember how many we transferred out. So let's just see. Well, I guess transferred out was 10,000 and 10,000. Is that 10,000 and 10,000? So let's just see if that's going to work for us. Okay, so 10,000 times $1.50 would be 15,000. 10,000 units times 15,000, and this would be 18,000. Now our ending work in process, how many units do we have at the end? At the ending process, we have the we have 5,000 times 0.85 is 4,250 times the $1.50. So that's 63.75. And in conversion, we had ending of 5,000 times 35% done, which is 1750, and the times the money of $1.80 is 3150. Now, this adds up 33,000 tied up when we finished, 9,000 still left here with 42,525. Now, to be honest with you, this total should match the total of all these. This total should match the total. So let's just see if that works. 2,560 plus 19,920 plus 20,045 is equal to 42,525. So do y'all see what I'm saying? This is how much money you had tied up in the beginning inventory. This is how much money you spent this month. Well, that has to match the allocation. So that's how you check yourself. So if I didn't match, I know, well, you got a mistake somewhere, but we're okay. It comes out correct. So we're matched there, and let's just check our work. There you go. Very good. All right. Let's try number 7. Now, I think they're going to be switching now to 5. They want weighted average. Oh, they want the journal entry of the ones that got transferred out. So now on that amount, what we transferred out was 33,000. So right away, from accounting 1, the debits have to match the credit. So where did they go? Well, remember what we talked about in process costing, they go from one department to another, right? In process department, you have multiple departments. So get transferred from assembly to testing, so they go from one work in process to another. All right. So now where do they go from? They went from assembly. And they went into painting. So they're going a cost from assembly to painting. So let's just check that. Very good. All right, let's keep going. Oh, now they switched. They want us to go to FIFO. Now, in your book, so let's just make sure. So we're saying, here are some other people that use process. General Mills, Pfizer. They're the ones making one of the vaccines. Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, Heinz, Cars, Hershey, Suja. So they to make tennis balls, they have to make the rubber cores. So they make it, in a giant production, and then they glue the felt to the outside, and then they package. So they got 3 work in process accounts. Okay. And you notice here, job work in process. So materials, labor, overhead goes into job cost. But in a process, work in process. Okay, first we make the core, the centers. Then we put the felt on the outside, and then we package and we have a finished good. 3 work in process. On a job cost, one work in process. All right, 1 job cost, job B15, B16, B16. All right. So let's see. I hope that helps. And what else do we have here? All right, so here they're blending and then roasting and then they're packaging. So they bring in raw materials, they blend everything, and then they roast it. Okay, all right, very good. All right. So now this is equivalent units for FIFO. So I was trying to find the appendix. So now here, beginning, started and completed, and ending inventory. Both of them. What do you have at the beginning of the period, the beginning of the month? How many do you start and complete? And what's your ending inventory, ending work in process? So to me, this one's more accurate, but more calculations. Okay, now this is not right. 10,000 are transferred out, but that's not what you started and completed. So let's think about that. If you transferred out 10 and you had 3, so how many did you really start in the period and finish? So again, completed, all right. So of the 10 you transferred out, probably 3,000 were the beginning inventory that were just already quite a bit done. So you're really, I think it's 7,000 that you started and completed, and 7,000 that you started and completed. So I hope that makes sense to you, because you didn't start and complete 10,000. That's what you transferred out. But of the 10, 3 of them, these were 3,000 mostly done, so you probably did those first. So materials, how much is it? You had them 65%, 60% done at the beginning of the month, so you only have to do 40% of the work on them. And on conversion, they were 40% done, so you got to do 60% to finish them. If you start and completed, you did 100% of the work. In the ending, you did 35%. All right. So now 1,800 equivalent units, 7,000. And okay. So now under this method, the equivalent units are not the same. So for conversion, I had 11,750 and I have 10,550. So now for materials, 1,200, 7,000. So the methods give you different answers, but the goal is still the same. You're still trying to figure out what things cost under these mass production methods. All right, so now this is 12,450. So this gave us a huge different number. The other one was 14,000. This is 12,000. All right, so let's check our work. Okay, so very good. So even though we have way different answers, we're after the same thing. We're still trying to figure out our costs. All right, 9. Let's see what do they want here. Now they want you to allocate cost. So again, how much money did you spend divided by your equivalent units? How much money did you spend? It's right here, divided by the equivalent units. Now, in this case, the materials are 19,920, and I'm going to see, this is my thinking here. They already have these costs in this to me, so I'm not including this first beginning work in process cost, whereas I did in weighted average. I'm not doing that in FIFO. Let's see if I'm right or wrong, because my thinking is, well, how much materials this month, equivalent units? So let's just see if this works. 12,450 and 10,550. And again, this was 14,250 for weighted average and 11,000 for weighted average here. So quite a bit different equivalent units, but we're after the same thing. So now our costs become $1.60, and they were $1.50 in their way, and $1.90, which is $3.50. And the other method, it ended up being $3.30. So a little bit different is the overall cost, but still close. $3.30 versus $3.50. Let's see if my thinking's right or wrong. Ooh, I got lucky. All right, better to be lucky in life. All right, let's see. So now they're probably going to want us to assign cost. So in this case, the cost of the beginning work in process is the $25.60, and cost to complete. How much money did it cost to complete those direct materials? Well, there were 3,000, 60% done. So you got to take 3,000 times 0.4 is 1,200 times the $1.60, which is our new numbers. So we're saying it took 1920 to get those done. Now let's look at conversion. Let me think a minute. Do I have the right equivalent units? Conversion. Oh yeah, it's going to be 7,000 times, that's 100 times the $1.60. So it should be, see, started and completed. So this should be 11,200. Now I forgot to do this conversion up here. So now these 3,000, and they were 40% done, so they're 60% done. So that took 1,800 equivalent units times $1.90. So I'm saying it took 3,420 to finish those. And then here we're 7,000 times the $1.90 here is 13,330. You got tied up in what's transferred out. So these are started and completed. Okay. Now, how much do you have tied up in the unit inventory? You have 5,000. You did the equivalent worth of 85%. That's 4,250 times the $1.60. So you did the equivalent work, $6,800. And then on conversion, you did 5,000 times, you got them 35% done, times the $1.90 is 33.25. Now that adds up to 42,525. Now, how can we check ourselves? So the beginning inventory had 5,000 tied up. The units we started and completed, we spent 32,000 on them, and what we have in is 10,000. 5 plus 32 is 30. I'm sorry. 3, 5 plus 24 is 32, and 10 is 42. Now let's add these up and see what that number is right there. 2560 plus 19,920 plus 20,045 is 42,525. So they do add it up. All our numbers add up. Okay, very good. So, all right. And let's see. Oh, the last one, the journal entry to transfer. Well, how much did we transfer out? Let's see what we finished. Oh, where was that? Number 10. Right here. It cost 5,000 to finish those and 24,000 to finish these. So all these got transferred out. The 7,000 plus these 3, 10,000, and you still have these left. So you still got 5,000 left. But that 7 and 3 is the 10, adds up to the transferred out. Okay. So our number is 32,400. So right here, 32,400, 32,400. They go out of assembly, work in process assembly, and they go into work in process painting. Let's check our work. All right, very good. So I'm sorry, this may be really new to you, this process costing, but again, a lot of people use it, and in your appendix, I was trying to find the appendix to show you that that's where it goes. I thought this was the appendix, but anyway, the appendix is where it shows you the FIFO method. So again, these are the 4 steps. Total units to account for. Figure out your equivalent units. Allocate your cost, or find your cost per equivalent unit, and then allocate the cost between beginning, ending inventory and what you transferred out. And then you make your adjusting entry. Equivalent units. What's the equivalent unit idea? The 8 houses, 8 batches of beer. Let's just pretend those are vats of beer. Look, this is what this beer looks like. Let me see if I can find you there. What's the equivalent unit? See, there's all these containers. If they're all half full, then you've done the equivalent work of how much? 50% done is the same as work of 100% on 4 of them. It's like if y'all have 5 term papers to write, and all 5-year term papers are 50% done right now, you've done the equivalent work of 2.5 papers, but you have all 5 papers started and they're half done. All right, process costing is a form of operation costing, which is used where standardized homogeneous goods are produced, mass production. And we talked about the various industries that use those. All right. I hope this helps you. Beer is definitely one. And all right. So I hope that helps you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for coming.